Look at me when I say this. Have you ever loved someone so much that your chest quietly starts negotiating with the future like it's trying to buy certainty with worry? I'm asking because I live there sometimes right at the edge of that feeling. No rail to hold, just open air, and this strange, powerful temptation to reach for control when what I really want deep down is just closeness. That's the core of it. My love, I need to tell you directly, I'm scared to lose you. And I want to be clear. This fear isn't because I doubt you, it's because I truly know how profoundly rare it is when a heart finally feels safe enough to unpack, to take everything out of its boxes, the fragile parts, the old scars, the quiet hopes, and just lay them bare. That level of safety isn't common. It's exceptional. I've built so many strong parts of my life on principles that work elsewhere. Logic and momentum. You apply force. You calculate the trajectory. You build systems and you get a result. It's reliable. It's engineering. But love is a different physics altogether. Love doesn't respond to force. If you push, it doesn't move forward, it just fractures. If you try to engineer it, you break the very thing you're trying to build. I've learned this sometimes the hard way. Love responds to a completely different signal. It responds to presence, to being here fully in this moment without the agenda of the next one. It's about the quality of attention, not the volume of action. And what does that presence ask of us? It asks for honesty first and foremost, the kind of honesty that is inconvenient, the kind that requires you to dismantle your own defenses and speak from the wrong place. It asks for restraint. This is a big one. It's the discipline to not speak in anger, to not cling in panic, to not demand proof when you feel uncertain, to hold your own reaction and examine it before you lay it at someone else's feet. And fundamentally, it asks for courage, the courage to be seen, truly seen without the armor of performance or the shield of irony, the courage to say, this is me, and I am afraid this might not be enough, even when every instinct screams to project invincibility if I'm being honest myself, and that's the prerequisite here, that the initial fear. The fear is a symptom, a data point that HAR's most grueling work is without feeling that fear exists without letting it become the architect. If they end up tight falls, whispering warnings of future loss, and not allowing that voice to design a cage around the person you love, with my son, one you love, because that's what we do, isn't it? We feel fear of loss, and our primitive solution is to control the environment, to limit the variables, to subtly or not so subtly build walls we call protection. But those walls don't protect the connection. They imprison it. They turn the field into a cell. But here's the critical insight, the thing nobody really told me until I had to experience it. The moment I stopped gripping the edge, that psychological edge where fear lives, is the exact moment I learn what's real. When I unclench my hands, when I stop trying to manage every outcome and resolve every possible heartbreak, that's when the truth of the situation reveals itself. That's when I learn if you're truly staying, not because you're obligated by my grip, but because you choose to freely. My act of letting go is the only way to test the authenticity of your hold. It's counterintuitive. It feels like risking everything, but it's the only way. So that's my question to you. Born from all of this, tell me, will you stay? Not just when it's easy, not just in the calm, but even when I'm trembling, even when my own fear is visible, and I'm consciously, deliberately choosing dignity over demand, choosing to stand in that vulnerability without weaponizing it. That's the choice I'm trying to make. And I need to know if you'll meet me there, not behind walls, but here on this open, frightening, and beautiful edge. If you're still here, stay with me, my love. I'm going to be completely transparent. I wasn't always this open. There was a long period, years really, where my default response to emotional complexity was to disappear into my work. The focus, the tangible problems, the clear metrics of progress. It was a sanctuary. It felt far easier and honestly more dignified to my old self to solve engineering challenges than to admit the simple, terrifying truth that I was afraid of losing someone. That vulnerability seemed like an inefficiency, a bug in the system. My operating model was flawed. I used to believe with the certainty of a fundamental law that control was love's insurance policy. I thought if I could just keep everything in check, my time, my tone, my attention, my expectations, if I could perfectly manage my own inputs, then I could engineer a predictable, safe outcome. I could protect what I cared about from the chaos of chance and human emotion. It was systems approach to the heart. But love doesn't obey those rules. I learned this through repeated failure, through the quiet confusion of seeing a connection strain under the very pressure I applied to secure it. Love doesn't want a fence. Fence defines a limit. It says this far, no further. It is about possession and perimeter control. Love wants a field. It wants open space, room to grow, to move, to change with the seasons and the light. It needs unpredictability to truly thrive. A fence guarantees a boundary, but it kills the wild flowers. A field offers no such guarantee, but it allows for the possibility of an entire ecosystem. I had to learn that distinction the hard way through the slow ache of realizing my protection was actually containment. You see, the fear of abandonment, which drives so much of that controlling instinct, doesn't actually start at the moment someone leaves. That's just the final painful data point. It begins way, way before that in the territory of silence. It starts in those microscopic, invisible moments when someone you love drifts an inch too far in their own mind, into their own worry or their own quiet, and your nervous system, not your rational mind, picks up on it. Your chest tightens. You feel it in your body before you can even find the words to describe it. That tiny fractional emotional distance can feel like miles in the dark. It's a signal. And when you're primed for loss, every signal is a potential siren. So you start your analysis. You become a forensic investigator of the heart, analyzing tone, timing, the length of pauses, the choice of a single word over another. You replay conversations, scanning for hidden meanings, for clues you might have missed. You are, in essence, a detective trying to solve an invisible crime that hasn't even happened yet. You're building a case file for a tragedy you are trying desperately to prevent. But if you pause that investigation and look at the core motive deep down, you're not really searching for proof that they love you. That proof likely already exists in 1,000 small gestures. What you are actually desperately searching for is reassurance, a guarantee, a signed contract from the universe that they will still choose you tomorrow and the day after. And in all the uncertain tomorrows after that, you are trying to solve for future variables with present day evidence. And it's an equation that never balances. The mind is an incredible prediction engine, but in matters of love, it's often a catastrophic one. It runs as simulations of loss based on fragmented data and historical pain. It's trying to protect you by showing you all the ways things could go wrong, but it floods the system with noise. It invents stories of departure and rejection at the speed of thought far faster than the heart can calm itself, with the simpler, quieter truth of the present mom. So you end up in this exhausting limbo, mentally living through a storm of your own creation. While the actual weather outside might be perfectly calm, you pre-live the heartbreak to armor yourself against it. But the tragic irony is that all that rehearsing just steals the very moments you're so afraid of losing, the peaceful, ordinary, unremarkable moments that are the actual fabric of connection. You're so busy monitoring the horizon for storms that you miss the sun on your face right now. That's the cost. And realizing the cost, truly feeling the weight of those stolen moments, is what begins to change the entire approach. And here's the strange, relentless truth I can't escape. The mind invents stories faster than the heart can calm them. It's a fundamental mismatch in processing speed. The emotional core, the heart feels something, a twinge of uncertainty, a pang of distance. It sends up a simple, raw signal of distress. But before that feeling can even be fully acknowledged and soothed, the cognitive engine, the mind has already taken that signal and built an entire narrative around it. It's drafted scripts, visualized scenarios, edited in flashbacks from past hurts, and projected a full-length feature film of potential futures, all starring you as the one left behind. So by the time my conscious self realizes on a rational level that you are still here, that you are still present and choosing this, my thoughts have already sprinted a marathon through every conceivable alleyway of loss. They've examined every possible ending, every variation of a goodbye. It is utterly exhausting, isn't it? This exhausting cycle where we pre-live heartbreak in a misguided attempt to protect ourselves from it. We think that by imagining the pain first, we can inoculate ourselves against its full force. We believe that if we can anticipate the fracture, we can somehow brace for it, make it hurt less. But all that mental rehearsal doesn't lessen future pain. It only inflicts present suffering. It actively steals the very moments that are worth protecting. The quiet comfort of shared silence, the lightness of a joke, the simple peace of existing in the same room without drama. We sacrifice the tangible real-time currency of connection, pay a ransom to a future that may never come. We are in effect paying for a disaster insurance policy with the coins of our current joy. And the premium is everything good about right now. There's this image that always comes to me when I try to explain the sensation, this mental model that makes it clear. I'm standing at the edge of a great height. Maybe it's a cliff. Maybe it's the top of a towering structure. The wind is pressing steadily against my chest, a physical force reminding me of the drop. And there is no rail in sight, no barrier, no engineered safety net. That's what profound love feels like to me. Terrifying and magnificent. All at once, you want to trust the breathtaking view, the expanse of possibility, the sheer awe of it. But a primal part of your brain, the older survival focused part, keeps calculating the fall. It's running the numbers on velocity and impact, shouting warnings about the risk, reminding you of gravity's absolute law. You are suspended between wonder and terror. And when I stand there in that mental space, I can hear two distinct voices. One is loud, clear, and pragmatic. It says, step back. This is irrational. Don't risk it. Control what you can and retreat to solid, predictable ground. That voice sounds like reason, sounds like safety. But then there's the other voice. It's much quieter, a whisper almost lost in the wind. It doesn't argue. It simply suggests, stay, just breathe. Look, see how beautiful it is. That second voice I've come to understand isn't my fear or my ego. That whisper is love itself. It's the part of the connection that asks me to stay put, to tolerate the discomfort of the edge long enough to be genuinely changed by what I see from that vantage point. It asks for presence over protection, but I have to confess, I didn't always stay. There were times, many of them, when the voice of fear won. My strategy wasn't to wait and see, it was to preemptively push people away just as I sensed they might drift. Do you know that specific hollow feeling? It's when you pretend you're fine. You act aloof or detached, you manufacture a conflict or create distance. But the underlying truth is you just emotionally left the room before they could. It's a kind of silent, perverse revenge you take against your own fear. You think if I am the one who ends it or creates the space, then I control the narrative. I won't be surprised. I won't be the one left standing here. You convince yourself with a tragic and flawed logic that you're saving your heart from future breaking, but in reality you are starving it. You are denying it the very nutrients of sustained connection and shared risk that allow it to grow stronger. You're choosing the certainty of loneliness over the uncertainty of love. And that's when I learned a lesson that was both beautiful in its clarity and brutal in its implication. What we label as self-P protection can, upon honest inspection, look an awful like self-sabotage. We mistake the act of burning the field for protecting it from a storm. We create the very abandonment we feared just to own the process. It's a painful paradox, and breaking free of it requires a fundamental rewiring of the instinct to control. Wait, before you move on, just hear this part. It's critical. The antidote to that fear, to that whole exhausting cycle, isn't certainty. You cannot find certainty in another human being. That's trying to solve a fluid dynamic problem with the static solution. The true antidote is something much more immediate and accessible, yet infinitely more demanding. It's presence, pure, simple, unadorned presence. We have to understand that we cannot build trust on a foundation of guarantees because absolute guarantees simply do not exist between human beings. We are complex, we change, circumstances shift, life intervenes. A guarantee is a fantasy of control. So what can we actually build? We can build faith, not blind faith, but a conscious, daily renewed faith. The faith that I will show up today as honestly as I can. The faith you will strive to understand me when I stumble over my own words or my own fears. The faith that even if one of us trembles with vulnerability, we won't reflexively turn that tremor into distance. We will lean in, not out. That's the compact. It's not grand or glamorous. That's all we can genuinely offer each other. When you really look at it, somehow that's stripped down. Honest offering is everything. It's the entire substance of the thing. I remember a specific night, a pivot point where I almost said goodbye. Not because as I wanted to, but as a kind of brutal stress test on my own emotions, just to see if I could psychologically bear the thought of it. My chest felt full of words, heavy and metallic like scrap, and none of them sounded right when I rehearsed them in my head. They all rang false because after peeling back all the layers of anger, frustration, and pride, I discovered the core sentence wasn't "I'm done." The core sentence, raw and unprocessed, was "I'm scup." Red. That was the root signal. But pride, that strange and stubborn engineer, has an odd way of constructing armor out of what looks like logic. It takes the soft, vulnerable data of fear and encases it in hard defensive reasoning. So instead of offering that honesty, I defaulted to my old operating system. I reached for control again. My voice became sharp, my posture defensive. I tried to predefine the ending, to architect the collapse myself before the unfolding unknown story could surprise me with a pain I hadn't approved. I tried to author the tragedy on my own terms, thinking it would hurt less. And that was the precise meant when my entire understanding of strength shattered and had to be rebuilt, because what I'd previously called strength, the stoicism, the emotional containment, the projection of unshakability, wasn't the real thing. It was a facade. Real strength, I saw in that painful clarity, isn't found in holding perfectly steady, in being an unmovable rock. Real strength is in the courage to admit out loud that you're shaking. It's in the integrity to stand there visibly trembling and still choose to stay, to not run, to not attack, to not build a wall, but to stay open within the tremor. Love, in its deepest test, doesn't assess your capacity for control. It assesses your capacity for surrender. Not surrender to another person, but surrender to the reality of the situation, to the vulnerability, to the risk, to the beautiful, terrifying lack of a guarantee. It tests your willingness to stand at that emotional edge and trust the air itself to hold you, to say, yes, I am terrified of this height, of this fall, and yet with that admission hanging in the air, to still keep your hand reaching out, not in desperation, but an invitation. That act is not weakness, it's the highest form of courage I've encountered. It's the kind of courage no one gives you a medal for, because it happens in the quiet, private, unspectacular spaces between two people who are slowly, clumsily learning how to stay. There's no audience, there's no applause, there's just the silent, monumental decision to be afraid together, to let the fear be present without letting it become the commander. It's the decision to let the connection itself become the only safety net you trust. That's the recalibration. You stop looking for the rail and start learning how to balance in the wind, knowing that the other person is learning beside you also without a rail. It transforms the entire dynamic from one of mutual risk management to one of shared conscious navigation. The goal shifts from preventing a fall to learning how to stand together on shifting ground. Tell me, have you ever loved like that? The kind where you can't stand on a stage and promise you'll never be afraid, because that would be a lie, but where you can make a far more meaningful promise to yourself and to them, that you'll never run from that fear again, that you won't let the sensation of panic dictate a retreat. That's a specific skill I'm learning to develop now, to stop the old pattern of running, whether that's running into work, into silence,